Guantanamo Boy, 2009, a children's novel by British author Anna Perera, follows the harrowing story of a Muslim teenager who is abducted while on vacation and detained without charges at Guantanamo Bay. Inspired by the real experiences of child detainees and the post-9/11 climate of fear and suspicion, the book highlights the struggles faced by young people caught in a system that treats them as enemies without evidence. Perera, who is of mixed Sri Lankan and Irish heritage, has authored several books for children and young adults, including Skew Whiff and The Glass Collector. The story centers on 15-year-old Khalid, a Pakistani Muslim teen living in Manchester, England. Khalid enjoys a typical teenage life, playing football and video games with friends. When his grandmother dies, his family decides to visit relatives in Pakistan during his spring break. Despite warnings about U.S. soldiers arresting young men in Pakistan and bribed locals informing on suspected terrorists, Khalid remains unconcerned. His family isn't particularly religious and identifies more as British than Pakistani, giving Khalid a sense of security in his identity. The family safely arrives in Pakistan, and Khalid enjoys playing an online game, Bomber 1, created by his cousin Tariq. However, things take a dark turn when Khalid's father disappears, and he sets out to search for him, only to find himself caught in a protest he doesn't fully understand. In an attempt to blend in, he joins the crowd. Later that night, armed men abduct Khalid from his aunt's house while his family sleeps. He is bound, gagged, and transported to an unknown location, where he is repeatedly interrogated by American agents who suspect him of being involved in terrorism. Despite his honest answers, they don't believe him. Khalid is then taken to a prison in Kandahar, where he cannot even communicate with other prisoners because of a language barrier. He endures constant abuse and torture as the interrogators pressure him to confess to terrorism. Some guards show sympathy, but their presence is rare. The Red Cross visits the prison, but their intervention does little to address the severe human rights violations. Instead of investigating the abuse, they offer prisoners writing supplies so they can send letters home. Khalid writes to his family, revealing the true reason for his imprisonment, his involvement in the online game Bomber 1. Eventually, under the stress of being waterboarded, Khalid breaks and falsely confesses to being a member of Al-Qaeda. Khalid's interrogators had promised him that confessing would allow him to return home, but he soon discovers they had lied. After his false confession, he is handed over to the American CIA as a suspected terrorist and sent to Guantanamo Bay. There, Khalid is engulfed by despair and isolation, losing his sense of self. He is known only by his prison number, 256, and has little to do. No opportunities to exercise, converse with other prisoners, or engage in meaningful activities. One of the few things available to him is reading the Quran, though even this doesn't offer solace. Khalid's grip on reality begins to deteriorate. He spends his time lost in memories of better days, struggling to distinguish his thoughts from the present. As a way to cope, he starts to harm himself. His suffering continues as he is tortured by his captors who demand further details of his false confession and any targets he might have planned to bomb or destroy. He is often deprived of food and water, exposed to extreme temperatures, and subjected to physical abuse to force another confession. Eventually, Khalid breaks, but not in the way they expect. He refuses to respond to his interrogators. Enraged, they beat him severely. But then, a surprising revelation. His cousin Tariq is in the next cell. For a long time, Khalid had blamed Tariq for his false imprisonment, but seeing that Tariq has endured the same tortures softens his anger, and Khalid begins to forgive him. Shortly after, a lawyer arrives to represent Khalid. Now 17, Khalid struggles to believe the lawyer is real and not a hallucination. His arrival signals a change in his conditions. He is treated more humanely. Finally, the lawyer informs Khalid that he will be released. Returning to his family is not an easy transition. Khalid is deeply scarred by his experiences, suffering from intense psychological trauma. Reintegrating into his old life and reconnecting with his family will take time, and he will never be the same. Guantanamo Boy was met with critical acclaim, receiving multiple award nominations. It has been translated into over a dozen languages and adapted into a stage play that toured nationally. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.